It's an intimate crowd this evening. Welcome to the Simsbury Public Library. I'm Ellen Cartledge. I'm a reference librarian, a new one at the Simsbury Public Library, and this is my baptism in fire. And this evening we're welcoming Aimee Petras, who is the Education and Outreach Coordinator at the Farmington River Watershed Association. And her topic this evening is natural lawn care, and she is going to talk about the steps you need to take, including getting a soil test and mowing techniques, and delving into common lawn problems such as grubs and thatch. You'll go home with great ideas on how to get your lawn off drugs and keep our rivers clean. So welcome, Aimee Petras.
All right, thank you. Okay, so thanks everybody for coming tonight, and welcome to those people out on the TV world that are going to be watching through Simsbury Community Television. Okay, so we're going to try to both address people in the room and also for the future guests. Natural lawns and gardens. I'm going to just go get busy here. So why natural lawns? Farmington River Watershed Association is pretty passionate about reducing polluted runoff, and this is one of the ways that we like to educate people about how to recharge our local groundwater and streams with fresh water without damaging their community of bacteria and all the things you're going to learn about the soil in my lecture today. So a natural lawn can host a community of plants and animals that holds nutrients and water, and that can help you grow a wonderful lawn. I'm not going to talk too much about the concerns of pesticides, except that there is evidence that there are harmful effects of pesticides, and this has been growing since Silent Spring in 1962. There's considerable scientific evidence for associations of cancers, birth defects, hormonal disruptions, neurological effects, damage to wildlife and ecological systems. But what my point is for the whole evening is that synthetic pesticides are not essential for growing healthy lawns and turf. So, managing your lawn naturally. So I've taken a course from the Connecticut NOFA, Northeast Organic Farming Association, and basically these are my 6 steps to a natural green lawn. And I have a confession to make. I don't actually manage a lawn. I've learned this all through going through a course, but I have a lot of experience talking with homeowners, and we've developed this course, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. So my number 1 rule, and I have this handout here. It's called For a Natural Green Lawn. It's available at frwa.org. And my rule number 1 is to get your soil tested. This is, the Yukon, I have a handout, hang on a minute, just so I can show. There's, through the soil nutrient lab at Yukon, you can take a soil sample, and it's only $8. Within 8 to 10 days, you get your results. And you can pick up an application here. I brought them with me. I have the form today. And you can also look for it online if you Google the Soil Nutrient Analysis Lab for soil tests. So I recommend that's the first thing, that's the first step, because what it's going to do is it's going to give you the recommendations for what kind of natural fertilizers you need. It's going to tell you how much organic material is in your soil. It's going to have a whole host of things, and you just click if you have an established lawn or if you have a new lawn that you haven't planted yet. You just check off what your specific area is on your lawn that you're taking the sample from and what you want to have it be, and they will send it back to you, and it's very, very helpful. So yes, I have copies of that today. And so my number 2 rule is to be reasonable about wanting a lush green lawn. everywhere because perfection is expensive. So if you have shady spots or you have an area under pine trees, which I think are one of the hardest ones to grow turf underneath, just try to accept it in some ways, and then the other parts of your lawn that can grow grass, you can make sure that you can focus your energy there. And now we get into the real deep and dirty stuff. So mow high. So there's benefits of keeping your blade height at 3 to 3.5 inches. You want to keep the blade height pretty high because it shades your soil surface. It prevents weed seeds from getting down there and germinating. It cools the surface of your soil in the summer. It aids photosynthesis. The longer your grass blades are, the longer the root system is going to be below. And so also longer leaves equal longer roots, equal drought resistance, less irrigation, and saving you water and energy. So my tips for mowing high, so you should definitely sharpen your blades every year. That you can take to a local gardening center. A sharpened blade will cut the grass more efficiently, and it will also save you time and energy. Yes?
You can also take it to hardware stores, Bowes,
Okay.
the West Hartford Town Center.
Okay, so yeah.
Blades, and it's like $7.
Yeah, so hardware stores and garden centers will sharpen it for you. And then as you're going through the growing season, cut no more than 1/3 off the height of the grass blade. So I learned this course from NOFA, who presents it to people that are managing like athletic fields and other large fields. And so what they do to, especially when they're doing organic, to keep their turf hardy, is they let it grow as long as they can. And then when it comes time to use that field, they start cutting it down 1/3 of the blade off at a time. And first of all, what it does is, if you have a longer grass blade and you're just cutting the top bit off, that actually will filter down, and then you have that grass that you can leave behind in the lawn to become a fertilizer. A lot of people say use a mulching mower, and then somebody comes in and they put their blade at 2 inches and they're cutting off a big hunk of grass, and then it doesn't have anywhere to go. But if you leave it a little higher and you're only cutting off 1/3 of the blade, it's going to filter through. So that's somewhat the problem. I mean, if you're having a party and you don't want your grass at 3 or 3.5 inches, you can cut it down to 2, but if you've managed it throughout the growing season at a higher height, it's going to last through that stress. So also, my last point here is to leave grass clippings. Grass clippings can provide at least 25% of your fertilizing needs. So having the grass clippings left behind is definitely helpful. Watering is essential for healthy growth. So the grass plant is about 80 to 90% of water. And so we recommend that you only water about 2 inches of water per week is recommended. And watering is best in the morning, and because then surfaces become dry, and by evening, and then diseases won't have the moisture needed to spread. So aeration is the next one. So aeration is key on athletics fields, because this is where I learned it from. So it's key on athletic fields where compaction is a persistent problem. And I kind of like to think of older lawns as the same thing. They've been compacted, people are walking on them, you're running your mower on there all the time. And every once in a while you do need to just go out there and do a little aeration. You can use a simple pitchfork, but that's in some elbow grease for sure. That would be, if you have a smaller area, that can be, just if you have a certain area that's really compacted and you want to just start there, that's a good thing to do. But you can also go to Home Depot and get a core aerator, which is, you can rent it for, I don't know, I think I looked it up today. I think I have it on the next slide. Yeah. So you can get a core plug aerator, rent it from Home Depot, $75 for 4 hours, $100 for the day. And I suggest you rent and share it with your neighbors. If you can get all your neighbors to, you can aerate all the lawns in the neighborhood, split the cost, and then everybody has nice healthy soil. And there's also aeration shoes if you want to do that. Or you could go out in your stilettos, I don't know. And there's tow behind aerators for tractors. So if you have a big lawn, I don't know out in the community TV world who's listening, but tow behind aerators, you can put it in behind on your tractor. They're about $70 to $125. You put a couple of, or more, of concrete blocks on top, and it'll just aerate as you're mowing. So welcome, and if you guys have any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand and ask along the way. We're also filming for Simsbury Community TV. So seeding and reseeding. So I recommend that you seed and reseed at least once a year plus compost. Basically, you want to generally do that in the fall. It's the best time to do it because you're not using the lawn as much. It's a good time to find those patches, and then you can get the grass going. You're not mowing as much, and then it has a chance to, hibernate over the winter and then just really get going in the spring. But if you have some problem spots on your lawn now, it's also fine time to do it anyway. And we also recommend that you top it with compost. So a couple of handouts that I have that I just want to mention, and if anybody's watching on TV, you can certainly call the Watershed, frwa.org, or our phone number, and call us up and ask for any of these handouts. But one of the handouts I'm giving is, it's all the list of the organic fertilizers that you can get. And once you get your soil test results back, you can use this to figure out if you have a deficiency and you need to add lye, or you need to add, lime, or you need to add some other, something that you're low in potassium or magnesium. This will tell you what specifically to use. Welcome. So compost. Compost is very important to a natural lawn care. It's a proactive approach to managing pests. If you want to have 5% organic matter in your soil, top dressing with compost is a great way to increase your organic matter percentage. So what the important thing about having a healthy soil, when you get your soil test, it's going to give you the results of what is in your soil, and it's going to tell you what percentage of your soil is organic material, and you want to have about 5%. And a great way to increase that over time is to add compost, and you just fling it right on top of the grass. And so I have here a 1/4 inch top dressing, so that's just putting it right on top, raking it over your grass. A 1/4 inch thickness will increase your organic matter by 1%. So if your results come back and you only have 3% organic matter in your soil, you want to add a 1/2 inch. And of course, you don't have to get out there with a ruler, just try to spread it out and get it through. But I also included here that with the third bullet, that 0.8 yards will top dress 1,000 square feet. So say a yard will top dress 1,000 square feet. And then you just figure out how much square feet you need to cover and just spread it around. And this is a great time. So if you can spread the compost and then you do the reseeding, you're in good shape. So that's why I also recommend you do it in the fall, because you're less likely to be tromping around out there. But this time of year is fine too. We're definitely past the spring rains, so you can definitely just spread it out, put some seeds in there, and just hope that some of them grow, and then in the fall is a better time, like I said before. And then once your organic matter is up to 5%, you can look into compost teas. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but I did have a handout about compost teas if you're interested. They're on the back of the organic fertilizer handout. I'm trying to save paper too. But compost tea, it basically means you're steeping compost in water with nutrients and you're keeping it oxygenated, and then you're kind of, I guess, brewing a bunch of bacteria that you then just spread out on the lawn, and you hope that those guys will help address some of the needs you have like later on in the growing season. One of the things that's really good about this is it's going to help supplement the biology of your soil, and thatch is a big problem at times, and if you have thatch, this is the ultimate thing for helping, because you're going to get all those little microbes and eating on the thatch, and it'll break it down and make a healthy soil. So, okay. So those are kind of my 6 rules of how to manage your lawn. And if you came in late, we have a handout, all the 6 rules, and you're welcome to stay after if you want to learn about them. And now I'm going to talk about lawn problems. So, weeds. This is my first. I have 6 weeds that people love to hate. And some people love to love. But these are indicator weeds. These are weeds that tell you secrets to what your soil is trying to tell you. And if you take this handout that I have, it's called What Your Weeds Say About Your Lawn. It's like a horoscope for your lawn. It's going to tell you exactly what's going on. But so here we have common chickweed, which kind of looks like purslane to me. Chickweed thrives in soil with low organic matter. So here we go again with our organic material. If you can raise the organic matter in your soil, you're not going to get these weeds that thrive on low fertility soils. Chickweed reflects a soil that's acidic and compacted, in a shady area. It indicates a low calcium. So, boosting organic matter and mowing high should help with control. And mowing high is going to help with lots of control. It's going to help keep so you can see that a lot of these these weeds, they grow out. And if you can keep your grass height higher, they're not going to germinate. They're not going to be growing up over it. They're going to be shaded out. They're not going to get the energy from the sun, all of those things. So crabgrass. This is another one that right now, during the peak, this is peak crabgrass season right now. This is when they're germinating. The forsythias are in bloom. And so while forsythia is in bloom, you want to try to keep your grass at 3.5 to 4 inches. The higher you can keep it, in the long run, you're not going to get these seeds germinating. If you see anything solid like this is more of a late summer crabgrass. You want to pull them and then compost, reseed, and hope that none of the seeds are sticking around in there. But crabgrass indicates a soil low in calcium. So you can virtually remove crabgrass by just adjusting the pH of your soil, by adding some lime. I keep saying lime. They won't survive there. So if you're looking at your soil, this is going to be an indicator for you. So this one also thrives in hot weather, which is why you can see it. So this is definitely like a summertime occurrence, you know. But to control it, you want to aerate the bare patches, top dress with compost, apply grass seed, and keep it high, especially now. I actually even put this on FRWA's Twitter feed that want to eliminate crabgrass, keep your grass high until the end of the forsythia bloom. So dandelion, this is one that I'm seeing driving around right now like crazy, and I'm noticing, if you see, there's like the lawns that nobody's really touched, and then the lawns that people have touched, and the dandelions are just popping out of those ones that have been cut down already, but the ones that are a little neglected don't necessarily have all those dandelions. So when you have dandelions, usually it's a symptom of mowing too low. Dry weather weakens a dandelion plant. If you have dandelions growing along a crack next to on your sidewalk or in your house, just pour a little white vinegar on it. You don't need to use Roundup. Take a nice hot day, pour some vinegar in there. It's going to suck it up and kill it, and at least weaken it, and you can pull it out really easily. So dandelion, you want to control by mowing high, don't overwater, and raise your calcium levels. And I have that fertilizer sheet as a reference that you can bring with you if you find that you have a very dandelion full yard. So white clover is one of those weeds that people say are weeds, but that are actually pretty beneficial. They help to fix nitrogen and make it available to other plants. They like, another example, they like moist, low fertility soil, but generally they're a great mix. They get the bumblebees. I think it's kind of pretty, but to control it, you just want to mow high and mow the flower heads. So again, here's another example of something. If you can keep your grass high, you're not going to get a lot of these weeds germinating. So creeping Charlie, this is another example of a weed that was brought over by the Europeans. The dandelions were brought over. Creeping Charlie is another one. It was used as a curative tea. It likes moist soil in shady, compacted areas. To control, you can mow high again and add organic material to the soil. If it's an extreme occurrence, you can use borax. I found online that you can use 10 ounces of borax to 2.5 gallons of water, and then you spray it over the affected area. If you have a big amount of it, you could just try to, what I've learned is that the Creeping Charlie is more sensitive to the borax than the grass seeds, and the grass plants. So what will happen, it will react to it, and then you can kind of get rid of it. But it's definitely one of those ones that will creep along, and if you have your grass higher, it's not going to get as strong. Broadleaf plantain is another one that helps maintain lawn fertility. A lot of these weeds have very deep tap roots. They go really deep in. They're getting to the water. They're getting to the nutrients that are way below the surface. And so this is another one that likes compacted, moist soil. I remember my parents had this a lot in their lawn, and my dad was he liked to water. So to control this, you want to aerate the soil and hand weed, and you want to pop off the seed heads. Another thing I've heard is that if you find that you have poison ivy, you can make a poultice with the leaves of this plant, and it helps with healing poison ivy. So you can just kind of chew on the leaves and then spit it out and spread it on your poison ivy. So let me know if you try that, anybody. So thatch, here's another problem that is troublesome for a homeowner. This is a layer of living and dead organic material. It lives between the green matter and the soil. So if you have a healthy soil, you've got microbes in there, and what they'll do is they reduce the thatch by breaking it down. If you feed them a carbon source, it will increase the population. So if you have like a healthy soil and you want to get microbes to start eating your thatch because you have thatch as a problem, you can feed them some kind of sugar and water. But I've also heard that you can use stale beer. That's what one of my attendees told me once. I don't know why he had stale beer. Usually I try to drink it all. But he had some stale beer, and he said that's what he does is he sprays maybe after a party. He just keeps it all. And so he'll put it in his sprayer, and that kind of helps keep like the microbe diversity up. You could also use compost tea, like I said before. That's another, microbe source. But anything that's gonna feed the the little guys in the soil is helpful. Yes?
I've been reading about thatch recently because we have a lot in our front yard because we had a maple tree. And in the clay soils, I learned that the roots grow near the surface. And therefore, when you're trying to grow grass over it, there's no soil underneath, and thatch is what grass naturally does when it's growing over these big, hunkery, wooden roots.
Yes.
And I don't know what you can do in that case. We have cut down the maple.
Oh, okay.
But the roots are still there, and they will take a while to degrade.
Well,
Does this
yeah.
work over roots?
So, well, I would definitely keep your grass high, and you're going to have to you might want to get that stump removed, which might help.
We did. We got the stump removed,
But the roots are still there.
It's amazing to think there's as much wood underneath
Right.
as there was on top. It was a huge
Yeah.
tree.
Well, so basically, thatch is kind of, and I can see how that would be a problem for you, because what happens is thatch is actually a lawn that's over dependent on watering.
We never
And-
water.
Right. Well, this is a condition, like basically the grass just keeps growing in the top. It doesn't
Right.
it doesn't go down because it has nowhere to go, because it's say you seed and then you just start watering like crazy, and then the grass plant just actually grows above the surface because it's so used to the water that it's getting. But in your case, I would have to look that up specifically because that's a very specific problem. But I would just say trying to let it grow a little higher and seeing if the roots will establish below them and in some way.
I think it must be common around here because the soil frequently is so clay.
Right, right.
And there's trees all over the place, and you see the roots all the time. So I mean, it took me a long time to figure out what it was.
Right. Well, I mean, all I can suggest is that you try some of this,
I like
and
the beer.
yeah, and I don't know how much beer will help, but
Take your home brew that didn't work.
yeah. If you have a home brew that you didn't really like, just spray it on your lawn. So here's some of my tips for dealing with thatch. Well, if you have excessive thatch, which would be like a 1/2 inch, it creates an environment for pests and disease. It can reduce your lawn drought resistance, because if you're watering a lot and you're not just giving these deep waterings, the lawn is just not going to make it through the season because it doesn't have any roots growing deeply. They're all in this thatch layer. And so another thing that I've learned is that lawns with a lack of earthworms usually have thatch problems. And when I think about an earthworm, when I'm sitting in like a very lush grassy area and you look between the blades of grass and you see these little mounds of soil, that's what the earthworm is actually cycling the soil and bringing those microbes up to the surface. And so that's where you have like a lack of thatch, is in a very healthy, robust soil that's getting kind of mixed around and aerated. The earthworms are aerating it. So maybe some earthworms you could add? I don't know. Do you have a question?
No, in the spring, we have a ton of that, a ton of the little earthworm casings put
Yeah.
around. And I'm wondering, and then there's some fertilizer that gets put down. And I'm wondering whether the fertilizer does injure the earthworms.
Well, I would say it's possible. I mean, they're definitely sensitive to chemicals. If there's a way that you can do it without adding chemicals, if you can try to do a compost on top or a compost tea like I was suggesting, that can be helpful. You can also take a soil sample and see what your soil has in it so that you can get a better recommendation. And the Yukon Soil Lab will give you like specific recommendations for your soil, and it only takes 8 to 10 days. So grubs are another problem that people love to hate. And this is like the chemical industry just goes crazy for grubs because people go crazy for grubs. I have a 2-page handout on frwa.org, and I've printed them tonight. But generally I like to learn about how the grub life cycle. That's really where I try to focus my energy on. So right now, if you look on this handout, which there's a life cycle sheet here, and what it shows is like in April and May, is when the grubs are really feeding on your roots right now. Like that's what's happening right now. And once June and July come, that's when they're emerging, and you'll be able to tell when the insects are mating because they'll start showing up in your lights at night, you know, your porch light. You'll start seeing those beetles. And if you think about the life cycle and then you try to address the issue, the best thing to do is to apply parasitic nematodes. There's milky spore and there's other ones you can get at the garden center. And so generally they recommend that you apply these in mid-August into September because that's when these beetles are planting their eggs into the soil. And my other recommendation is that you not water during that time, because if you're going to make a nice, wet, moist soil in August, and when these beetles are mating and making their eggs, you're just inviting them to plant their eggs in your soil. And the best thing for you to do is to just not water, because then it's a dry environment. They're not interested. They'll go to your neighbor's lawn instead. So on the first page of this, I have on the bottom here, keeping your lawn free of grub damage. So you want to plant the right grass. So plant grasses that have deeper root systems and resistance to heat and drought, and it has some of the specific kinds. Keep your lawn on a water diet during adult beetle activity. So when they're out dating at night in the summer, don't water. You know, I mean, maybe you're going to have a party and you want a little watering before the party or something, but your lawn should be able to survive 1 inch of water a week. And an appropriately irrigated lawn will be more tolerant of feeding grubs anyway. Focus on your biodiversity. So ants, parasitic wasps, and flies are natural predators of grubs. So keeping your lawn full of flowering plants attracts many different types of insects. And don't use pesticides, because keeping your lawn free of broad spectrum pesticides will result in a lawn thriving with beneficial insects that will be natural predators to beetles and grubs. I know that's just sounded like a slogan or something, but it's really true. So in my last presentation, this woman said, you know, all these things you're telling us to do, it sounds to me like, you know, you look at the lawn care programs that are in the people that are out putting the chemicals on their lawn, and they're cutting their grass to 2 inches, they're applying these pesticides. Like, is this a vast conspiracy? Don't they know this stuff? And they probably do know that this is the way to manage a lawn naturally, but they want you to be dependent on their chemicals. So that's what they're doing. They're cutting the grass to 2 inches. The weed seeds are getting in there, especially from your neighbor's lawn, because of course you don't have any weeds on your lawn. And so all these things are happening, and so people just think, oh, this is just easier if I just let the lawn care company take care of it. They know what they're doing. But they do. They know what they're doing. They're keeping you a customer. So, and so I added this in because I commonly get questions about moles and voles, and they eat 2 different things. Oh my goodness. That's what I get for putting this on top of the computer. So there's moles that are insectivores, and then there's voles that are plant eaters. So insectivores, moles eat earthworms with a few grubs and insects. Moles are tunnel builders. You barely see moles. To control them, you can trap them. You can find their tunnels and then tamp them down a couple times. And if they keep using that tunnel, that same tunnel, you can put these kind of scary traps that once they come through, they'll just get trapped. And I did find a more friendly way to do that would be you can just kind of sink a big jar under that tunnel, and when they run through the tunnel, they'll fall into the jar and then they can't get out. I also learned that castor oil can be a repellent. And you just add, so if you're doing a spray, you would do 6 ounces in 1 gallon of water plus 2 tablespoons of detergent, and then you use your little sprayer and you go through the whole lawn. Or you can just put it in your watering can with 1 gallon with 2 tablespoons of castor oil and 2 drops. And then you just spot it, on just small parts of your lawn. And then there's voles. So voles are the plant eaters. They're the ones that are eating all the way through your rows of bulbs, strawberry plants, what have you. They look like mice. They have ears as opposed to moles that don't. They're very social. They have a short lifespan, so they have lots of offspring. And they have more superficial tunnels and golf ball sized holes that they kind of dig in, and they're just going for the veggies. So they're going for that middle layer. And I've read that you can have mouse traps, have a heart traps, and then they suggested that you trap them with peanut butter mixed with oats and maybe feed them for a while and then set the traps if you want to do that. Otherwise, they recommend that you plant trees to attract birds of prey or get an outdoor cat.
I've seen what are they, hawks?
Uh-huh.
And they sit and look, but I've never seen them dive bomb the yard. And I know we have something, probably voles, so I keep asking them, but
right.
they're not doing anything.
Yeah. So another thing they recommended, if you have, if you're planting bulbs, to, plant around your bulbs, you can put in some wire mesh around them so that they're not getting in, but they're pretty small. So you really have to figure out, how they're getting in. And since they're so social and have so many offspring, I would do more Googling for that one because I'm not too sure. But I do have a handout here. I have so many handouts that I keep talking about. And I have it about voles, so controlling voles. So I have another handout about it. And they have other kind of methods. So fencing, trapping, and then just acceptance is the last one. So apparently it's a hard issue. So here's a kind of a list of the handouts that I have. There's more than these, but if anybody's watching on TV, feel free to check our website at frwa.org or to call the office, 860-658-4442. And I'd be happy to talk to you about any problems you might have. And then if I can take questions now. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the handouts that I have that are not mentioned. There's another one that I printed that it talks about our Freedom Lawn Initiative, which is on FRWA's website. It talks about pesticide risks and pesticides in our water. But on the back side, I really like this because I kind of designed it. It's a brochure, but it's a seasonal to-do list. And so it's a really good thing to just put it on your fridge and say, okay, it's mid to late spring. I should be overseeding weedy and thin areas, aerating, adding soil amendments, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a great little thing because any time of the year is a good time to start managing your lawn naturally. So this is one of those things that, I designed it this way. You can just fold it. But yeah, if you put it on your on your fridge, then you'll know what you're supposed to be doing and you can keep a track. So then I also, I'm just going to go through these. I have Controlling Voles, which is from the Northwest Coalition for Alternatives to Pesticides out of Eugene, Oregon. It's 2 pages. I've got the Grubs. Grub Life's, like how to degrub your lawn organically. what your weeds say about your lawn. And then on the other side, my 6 rules of chemical-free lawn. We've got the soil nutrient analysis form for getting a soil test. It tells you how to take the test, and then it has that you fill it out right here. Choosing lawn grasses. This is from Cornell Extension. And what I like about it is in the back here, it tells you based on your how you're using your lawn. Is there a lot of wear? You know, is it dry? Is it shady? And you can pick a grass based on what your characteristics are. And it also tells you a little bit about each grass type. And then I have making compost tea handout, and on the back, organic fertilizers. And then I also just recommend anybody give me a call or email me if you have any questions. Well, that's pretty much what I have for natural lawn care. I do have some bonus slides that I can show you. I had a garden club ask me once about deer-resistant plants. And so this is the bonus round if you like. I mean, I realize now that I have some time still. So my disclaimer is that if a deer is hungry, it will eat anything. So don't assume that any of these you're gonna just, if you only plant these, then they're gonna eat these anyway. So you might as well keep a couple hostas on the side for them to gnaw on or something. So most of the plants that deer don't like is for certain reasons, mostly the texture or it's bitter in nature. But bee balm is known as a deer-resistant plant. Attracts butterflies, hummingbirds, and bees. It blooms in midsummer. It's tall. It comes in all kinds of colors, and it spreads well in damp soil.
It's very spreading. I planted some, I didn't know that.
Brunera has a sky blue flower. They bloom in the spring. Some come with variegated leaves as shown in the picture. It prefers partial shade, especially the variegated varieties, and it makes a great cut flower. Catmint, I think this one's because it's like it's got a little spiky almost, but silvery foliage, blue flowers all season. This one is also a spreader, so maybe containers are okay too, but they're fragrant. And they make great cut flowers. Golden Marguerite, also known as golden chamomile. It's got yellow blooms, it's drought tolerant, it blooms early to late summer, which is a great time to have something popping in your garden, and it's easy to grow. Jack in the Pulpit, but this one I usually get giggles from because the plant parts are actually toxic to humans. So maybe if you don't have small children, then maybe it's okay. It likes kind of swampy, moist areas, and it's got a dramatic, unusual flower. But then again, it's probably the reason that the deer don't eat it is because it's toxic. So, but it's a pretty cool plant if you see it. Meadow rue is a great cut flower as well. It's tall. It comes in many colors. It's a late spring to early summer. So this would be probably, I guess, something you would plant for next year. I have sea holly, which is also, this is a great one to put by your mailbox if it's by the road. It's salt tolerant. It's got striking flowers. It's prickly, which is probably why the deer don't like it. It makes a great cut flower, and it's also great for drying. And it likes full sun, which is actually, sometimes you find that you find either ones that really like sun or really don't like sun. So this one's likes sun, and you can put it right by the side of the road where it might get a lot of salt, so. And I have pink turtle head. Unusual flower, kind of looks like the snapdragons, but it also looks like a turtle head, I guess. Attracts butterflies and likes some shade with heavy wet soils. And that's it. So that was just my bonus round. So that's it. That's what I have. And thank you very much for coming. And thank you, whoever's out there watching. And if you have any questions, please email me. And it's, you know, if I go backwards, I can keep that screen up. My name, we're Farmington River Watershed Association, Petras@frwa.org. Email me, tell me you've seen this, tell me you loved it, tell me what I need to improve, and then a phone number. And that's it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.